But the thing that our boss, Jason Linder, our senior AD, says is their emergency isn't always your problem. And that's one thing that I try to hey, I get you're behind on this, and that's fine, but that's not really my problem to deal with right now. Let me handle my kids and my business, and then I'll be able to circle back to you when I have the time for it.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Reach Your Prime. I'm Jared Barnes, your host and founder of Prime U. We develop talent within organizations and support individuals in their personal and professional pursuits of excellence. Today, we're talking with Kaeman Mitchell, the L.O.P.E.S for Life coordinator at Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, Arizona. After a stint as a collegiate football coach, Kaeman served in multiple student-athlete development roles within collegiate athletics. His passion is in helping student-athletes grow and become the best version of themselves, and has some real wisdom that he's picked up along his journey. Kaeman is a thoughtful guy who really has a heart for athlete development. I think you guys will enjoy this episode of Reach Your Prime with Kaeman Mitchell. Welcome to the Reach Your Prime podcast. My name is Jared Barnes. I'm your host today. We have the very, very special opportunity to have Mr. Kaeman Mitchell of Grand Canyon University in the beautiful city of Phoenix, Arizona on the show with us today. Kaeman, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, Jared. How are you, man?
Oh, I'm great. Outstanding. Thank you so much for being on the show. Real quick, you want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, so my name is Kaeman Mitchell. I'm the L.O.P.E.S for Life coordinator at Grand Canyon University. A former student athlete. I played football in Illinois. Then I went on and GA'd as a football coach at University of Kansas for 2 years, and then on to Illinois for a year, then finished up in student athlete development and got in there. And the rest is kind of history, as they say.
The rest is history. The rest is history. Well, man, we want to dig into that history. You know, what made you first, after you finished your playing career, what made you want to get into coaching?
For sure. So my dad is actually a college football coach. He's at UTEP right now. So I grew up around it, so my whole life, every Saturday since I was 3 months old has been watching college football. So I just always knew this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And, part of it was cool because I got an inside look at the business of it and all that stuff. But even the look that I got, seeing it through my dad, I think that I still didn't have the full picture till I got into it. But just growing up around him, it was just it was just the ultimate, job to me. It was like coaching football. I seemed just like it wasn't even a job. It was such a great experience.
Yeah, so you saw the purpose in it early, man. I think that's so unique where a lot of times we kind of drift and we're searching for that thing that helps us stay in our lane, or that something that really clicks with our passions and everything. So yeah, tell us one highlight from your coaching career.
So there weren't a ton of wins, unfortunately. I'd love to tell you about some great win that we had. But I know one of the coolest experiences was my first year at the University of Kansas. It was Charlie Weiss's second season. And in my first year, we beat West Virginia at home. And that was the first conference win. So, those guys were going on almost two years without a Big 12 win. So just the excitement for them and the emotion that you saw with them and how happy they were and just that sense of relief, they weren't immune to what people were saying on Twitter or in classrooms and writing about them. Also, they knew what the outside world was saying. So for them to have that one gratifying moment it was awesome to be a part of that. And that's something I really won't forget.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Kaeman, tell us something about coaching college football that most people don't know or most fans don't see on television.
So the biggest thing is nonstop. As soon as the season ends, you're out recruiting. They know that, but they don't see that, these guys are gone from Sunday to Friday. Then they get back Friday. They have official visits all weekend, and they leave again Sunday. So they're spending so much time helping raise and care for other people's kids. It's taking away from their own. I don't think that people really realize how much of a servant's heart that is. They just look at the big money and of course they make so much money. Why wouldn't you want to do it? It's man, it's hard to do when you're giving up so much time with your own family to help raise somebody else's kids, and you're hoping that someone would be willing to do those things for your kids one day.
That's very real, very real. And myself being a former coach, I can agree with you on that. How much just passion, but also selflessness, it takes to be in a role like that and really investing into young men or young women that you may not have known, a few months ago. And now you're giving them everything you got is just really, really admire that, man. But you made a transition out of coaching. What led to you transition out of coaching, and then where did that take you next?
For sure. So, yeah, I loved coaching, but the thing that I loved the most was the relationships with the guys and just, building that camaraderie and just, getting to kind of see them achieve their goals. That was always my favorite part. I love the game of football, but I don't necessarily love the hour-long meetings and all of that. And being married, I just wanted to have more time to be with my wife and all that. And I just felt like, man, if I'm already struggling right now to do this stuff and we don't have a kid or anything like that, then, maybe this isn't the career that I want to do for the next 40 years. So I started looking at the things that I really enjoyed about coaching. That was spending time with them and all that. And I thought back to my own experience as a student athlete. And I had some great mentors when I was a student athlete in academics and student athlete development. And I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. It's like, love those people unconditionally because my playing time didn't matter to them. And that's when student athlete development just clicked for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. So tell us about your initial role with student athlete development, because it was pretty much an emerging field, when you got into it.
Yeah, so I was really, really, really fortunate. I played at Illinois. I was finishing up as a GA at Illinois, and I had reached out to Kathy Kaler, who's the director of student athlete development life skills at the University of Illinois. She was there back when I was a student athlete. She's been there for like 15, 16 years, something like that. She's truly like, it's like whenever I go back or I still talk to her, I always make sure that I have to go see her. And she had opening as a GA spot, so I was able to just kind of slide over there and finish everything up. But I was really fortunate to learn from her because I believe she might have been the first person to bring life skills to the Big Ten. So, I mean, her program to me is like the end all be all.
That's great. And the opportunity to sit and learn from somebody of that stature and that position who is that well, researched and competent at their job is just, you can't put a price tag on that. So, man, just a practical question. What insider advice would you give to, either a college student or a young professional looking to not necessarily get in just student athlete development, but looking to get into any career as far as, things they can do right now to prepare themselves?
Yeah. So the thing that I tell my kids when I meet with them is like, don't necessarily think about what, career field you want to do for the next 40 or so years, whatever it might be, but think about what you like to do that it brings you joy. So like, do you like teaching? Do you like mentoring type things? Do you love conversational type things? Because then sales might be a route for you. If you love going out and meeting people and stuff like that, maybe sales is a good route for you. So think more about things that just really make you happy, make you feel excited to get up and go about your day. And then once you have that picture in your mind, then we can start to pick, kind of focus in on certain careers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my question to you is, how did you discover that?
I started out coaching and I loved it. It was great at first. It was eye-opening because I think even with seeing my dad, I tell him now all the time, like, I have such an appreciation for you getting up day in, day out, working those 5 a.m. to midnight days, gone all week, gone for training camp. And, it's crazy because and you've been through it when you lose. Sometimes it can almost feel like, man, all that prep time was like, it wasn't worth it. Like I could have been doing something else. It's such a defeating feeling sometimes, but you learn to focus on the process of everything and not just the result of it. So I was able to just kind of see that. And then I just was able to look like, man, my favorite time in coaching is when I'm meeting with the players, like when I'm getting to spend that time with them, talking to them about what's going on in their lives and what they want to do with their life. I was like, that's what I love. That's what I'm really, really passionate about. I love football. I love the X and O's of it, but I could live without that if it meant I got more time with the student athletes and helping them grow. And then I just kind of settled on student athlete development.
I love it. I love it, man. And we have very similar stories, and I had shared that with you before. So that resonates with me, finding that true purpose in, like you said, that joy of what you're doing, and then focusing on that, focusing on your strengths, not necessarily just your weaknesses, but it was a process to get there. And I'm sure you have a process every day, not only as a former coach, but, now what you do, you have a very, distinct process, set of standards that you follow. Walk us through that, so not necessarily just like your day to day, but how you think as far as how you're approaching your work.
So the big thing I think you know from your time in student athlete development is like, you don't always get to see the effects of it. I was listening to a podcast with Kobe Bryant, actually. He was talking about how the thing he missed about playing was the instant feedback, from the crowd and all stuff. He doesn't get that creating content. And it's similar, with student athlete development. Like, I don't always get instant feedback from the kids like, oh, we love this speaker. With you, I was lucky. Like a lot of kids actually came up to me like, hey, thank you for bringing him in. We enjoyed him. But a lot of the career stuff and community service stuff, you might not get instant feedback on, but you get to see them kind of grow and develop. And then when you see them have that job, waiting for them at graduation, it's worth it. So it's really just kind of having a long game approach to it, to like, you're not going to change this. It's not an epiphany. There's no workshop. There's nothing I can create that's going to like change their life with the snap of a finger. But hopefully the different workshops and opportunities we try to expose them to, prepare them for life after, and they just feel more comfortable leaving school.
And then just having that long-term mindset of hey, I'm trying to impact you for your future self, or who you are going to be, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. It can be incredibly humbling. Incredibly humbling, man.
I was going to say, I tell them all the time, like, I'm not saying that if you won't have a great life if you don't attend a single one of my workshops or community service, but maybe I'll make your life a little bit easier because you'll have a better network, or you'll have learned some things to help you out. So it's weird because it's not like they need necessarily what we're offering, but it'll make their life so much easier.
Yeah. So true. So true, man. So from a practical standpoint, how have you maintained your motivation and creativity in this field of student athlete development?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the hardest parts of it, is to not get stale and not fall into the routine of like, oh, we did financial management last year, let's do financial management this year. So one of the things that we always do is after every L.O.P.E.S for Life workshop, I send out a survey to everyone who RSVP'd. And it's just a simple 5-question, rate the quality of the presenter, rate the quality of the presentation 1 to 5. What did you like? What did you not like? What would you like to see us offered? And from there, that what I'd like to see him offered, that tells me a lot, like, okay, am I missing something? So if the kids say like, hey, we'd like to see a lot more about mental health or nutrition, I try to go out and find someone with there. So a lot of my programming is student athlete inspired. What do they want? I'll ask my kids when I meet with them, like, hey, what do you want someone to talk about? And then I try to keep up with what's going on in the world, and what's going on. So that way I can try to plug some of that stuff in to our programming as well. And then I send my calendar out to Kathy Kaler, Illinois. Like, when you look at this, because I think yours is amazing. Like, what am I missing? Where can I improve? What more stuff can I get in there? So just trying to get feedback from a lot of people kind of keeps me driven and motivated.
I love it, man. You're serving the people with things that they need, not necessarily something that you want to see happen, which I think that can be a tough balance,
For sure.
Because you have to take ownership in it, where it's like, it's your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's for the students. But you mentioned a really interesting piece, man, in staying relevant with culture. Obviously you have your own experiences and how you grew up, but how have you stayed relevant with culture today in 2018?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I'm only 27, so I feel like I'm still young enough to work social media and see what's going on in the world. So that's a big thing. Like, you can see what's going on Twitter. I mean, try to have as many different sources of information coming in so you're not getting too biased to one side or the next. With the Me Too movement and all the attention, rightfully so, being drawn by sexual assault victims, like, that's something I really have a passion for and really wanted to get on our calendar. So right now we're trying to bring in Brenda Tracy, actually, to come speak to our kids in the springs. I'm like, hey, this is important. This is stuff that we need to cover, even if it means bumping something that might be maybe a little bit more real world and applicable, like financial management, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're bringing this one in because this is important to what's going on in our culture right now.
So true. So true. And that's great, man, of how you've been not necessarily just on social media, but studying the different trends, the different patterns, man. So that's great. And that's great. And that's how you stay relevant. That's how you remain relevant, being able to speak the language. That's how you speak the language. So yeah, but with that comes this sea of information, and you got to kind of thumb through, okay, this is relevant. This is not relevant at all to what I'm trying to do or who I'm trying to serve. So how have you remained focused, man? How have you grown in that ability to say no, in different things that have popped up with you, whether it's on the job, as a young professional, or, being in a city like Phoenix, where there's just a lot of opportunities, how have you grown in that ability to say no?
I've been lucky that since I was a kid, saying no is not necessarily something I struggle with. But that being said, when I'm working, that's one of the hardest places to say no because you want to help different people and all that other stuff, get
Right,
involved with stuff.
right.
But the thing that our boss Jason Linder, our senior AD, says is their emergency isn't always your problem,
Yeah,
and that's one thing that I try like, hey, I get you're behind on this, and that's fine, but that's not really my problem to deal with right now. Let me handle my kids and my business, and then I'll be able to circle back to you when I have the time for it. And that does a good
absolutely.
job of helping me say no and prioritize, as well as letting them know, like, hey, if I'm when I'm interacting and working with Kaeman, I need to make sure that I'm giving him enough time so that he can handle his L.O.P.E.S for life, his student athletes, and have time to do stuff. I can't just throw it to him last minute.
I got you. I hear you on that. I hear you on that. Any specific tips you have for people who like they're feeling overwhelmed and like, man, I just got to cut certain things out, but I'm not sure what it is to cut out.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing that I would say is when you look at your day, like for me, I try to block my day. So I have student athletes in the morning, L.O.P.E.S for life in the afternoon. So I try to block it so that I always know what I should be working on generally in there. And if those two things don't fit in there, then I might need to start looking to say no to those things. And I'd also say always make time for yourself. My workout at from 6:30 to 7:30 with our softball coach Ann Pearson, like that's part of my me time to get my mind ready for the day. So I'd always say you have to have time for yourself to get your mind right to go into work in order to be productive and prioritize.
So true, man. So true. You got it's like that building that momentum, in all of your actions and things that you're doing. I know you and I had talked about that outside of this, but the momentum is critical. Critical, man. But from a practical standpoint, how do you balance that, because we all want to be the best at what we're doing. How have you mentioned the workout, but what other things have you done to kind of balance this hustle and this drive of, working in collegiate athletics with, obviously now being a family man? How have you made that balance?
That's tough, and that's something that I really struggle with because like I don't necessarily consider like responding to a student athlete's text work. So if I'm at home, that doesn't really bother me when they text me to ask me a question about something or I get an email. But the big thing is just like putting the phone down, and I could do a way better job at that. But just trying to like say like, okay, for this next whatever, when I'm holding my daughter, I'm going to try really hard to not look at my phone. They can wait. So that's probably been. And then when I'm at work, just really focus on like, hey, when I have kids in my office, it's all about them. So just trying to be. I believe I heard on your first podcast to win where your feet are, and like be in that moment. That helps you prioritize. Like, okay, this is what I'm doing right now, so that doesn't matter. I can get to that when I get to that.
So true. Easier said than done, but definitely so true, man.
Because it's like, I have one kid in my office and I'll see it on the corner of my eye, text about another kid like, hey, I can tell it's a question. And it's like, nope, they can wait. I'm going to focus on who I have in my office right now.
That's it. That's it, man. Focusing on whatever is right in front of you that's important and urgent at the same time. It's a hard balance, but I think we're all working towards that. We're all working towards that, man. And so I appreciate you sharing all that from a professional standpoint. I know our audience, that's something that you don't really learn in school. You learn it on the job. And I wish I would have had something like that to help educate me as I made my transition as a professional. But I think a big part of what we do at Prime U and on this podcast, man, is just getting to know you personally. Getting to know you personally. I know we all have our dreams and aspirations, but sometimes we can lose sight of the personal aspect, man. Tell me, man, how have you grown more comfortable with yourself, on the job? How have you been able to show your personality at work a little bit?
Yeah, I would say for me, the biggest way I try to show my personality is like through how I dress. That's a really good way to kind of market yourself. Kind of show a little bit of your personality. So like for me, it's hard to want to wear like slacks and dress shoes and a button down shirt and all stuff because I'm not in college anymore. I'm not super young, but I don't feel like I'm quite at that age yet. So that's a big way to try to feel myself and feel like I still have my personality with me is how I dress. And then I always have music going in my office. I always have Pandora playing. I shouldn't say always. I'm not as good as I used to be because my meetings go a little bit faster than they used to. But I like to let the kids, give me a station. Like, hey, if you're gonna be in for a while, what do you want to listen to? Just little things like that to kind of show them like, music is a big thing for me. What do you want to listen to? And then I just try to open up and tell them a little bit about my life. A lot of times we do our academic, I'll check the grades or we're having a conversation about their family or where they're going for lunch or, something, what they did over summer, something like that.
Yeah. That's good, man. I think it can be a very hard thing to remain true to yourself as much as, people are like, oh no, I'm my true authentic self at work. I don't know
Yeah.
about that all the time, man. I don't know. Yeah, and it's a hard thing because you want to fit in a workplace. You want to, be in alignment with everyone else and make sure your brand reflects who you are and be able to put yourself in position
Absolutely.
for the
Absolutely.
next opportunity. But at the same time, it's like, well, man, if I can't be myself, then what am I really doing? So, it's
Yeah.
like you said, those little things, those little tiny things you can do to show your personality, to have that relatability, especially when you're working with students, because that's everything, man. That's everything.
And I've thanked my boss several times, like, hey, I know I don't always dress the way you would like. Now, I never dress unprofessionally, but he's a little bit more old school. So I'm like, hey, thank you for letting me be me because I feel like I can, when I'm at my best, I can elevate others to be at their best. So thank you for letting me be who I am and not trying to force me in a
Mm,
box because then I don't do that to others.
yeah, empathy, man. That's I think that's a definition of empathy right there. I love it. I love it. That's true leadership, and I think a great reflection of your boss and in empowering you to be the best version of you. I think that's something we're all trying to be, So that's great, man. Two more questions. Two more questions. Want to get to know you personally, man. So if this one, I'm interested because we all, we have this mindset on the future, and if I can position myself to do this thing, man. But if you had $100 and you could invest $100 in any company or any person, who would you invest it in?
All right. Any company or person, not both, or like not one of the other, or one or the other, not both.
Yeah, either one, either one.
All right. If I had to pick, if I had to pick a company, and this probably sounds cliche, but this probably shows you how little versed in the business world I am. I've strictly been college athletics. But honestly, I would say Nike because they tend to want to push the envelope a little bit, and they seem to do a
Definitely
really
pushing the
good job
envelope.
of being able to read the trends and being okay with
Yeah,
losing or gaining certain target markets. So I'd like the Kaepernick ad. Like they knew that people were going to burn and cut stuff, but
yeah.
they were like, there's a bigger picture to all this. So that would be who I would if I put $100 on a company and invest in them. That would be who I'd invest in.
That's great. I like it. I like it, man. That ability to be confident in your choice and stick
Mhm.
with it and see it through. Rare. Yeah, I think it's rare today. Last question, man. Last question. If there was one course, one college course that everyone on earth had to take, it was a mandatory course. What would that course be?
Man, I was actually hoping you would ask this question when I saw it on the list. The course that I would teach is I would just call it Human Decency 101. And it's not that I
Okay.
think humans are innately bad or good or whatever it is, but I just think so many times when you see like just driving down the road and someone's got their blinker over, like if you would just slow down and let somebody get over, or to say thank you when someone holds a
Yeah.
door open for you, like, or say hi to the greeter at Walmart, say hi back. There's so many little things that we can do to just show that we care about other people that it doesn't necessarily have to be this big production, but just saying hi to people when you pass them, just genuine human decency. Those small things I think mean a lot more to people than what you think at times.
You never know the difference you can make in somebody else's life. So true, man. So true. No, so this last portion, man, we just call it final thoughts. Anything you would like to share with our audience about you, about what the work you've been able to do in student athlete development, your past experiences, anything, man.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that I'd like to share, just like kind of as I get out of here, is it actually ties into one of the questions you sent us to prepare with is if you had one last tweet, what would it be? And it's kind of what I've learned throughout my life is the joy is in the journey. There's a lot of
Yeah.
joy in how you get to where you're going, not just in getting to where you're going. So I thought my whole life I wanted to coach, and I got into it, and I realized it wasn't for me. Now I could look at it as a failure, or I could look at it as all part of the journey to lead me to what I'm supposed to be doing, what my purpose is. So I feel like the joy is in the journey.
The joy is in the journey. You heard it here first. That's going to be the hashtag when we release this podcast, man. The joy is in the journey. I love it.
I like that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, Kaeman, man, thank you so much for sharing. Incredible story of coming from being a former football player to coaching to now working in the field. Really admire the work you and the rest of your team at Grand Canyon University are doing. And again, thank you guys so much for hosting us and all the work that we do. Can't thank you enough, Kaeman.
Oh, thank you. You made me look good. It's amazing how many student athletes come by and been like, oh, he was great. Thank you so much. So no, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Prime U and what you guys are doing. So it really is an honor to do it. Thank you.
Just to recap, here's 3 things. Don't think about the career field you want. Think about what you like to do every day. What makes you excited to wake up? Don't look at workshops and programs as an instant, life-changing event. Look at them as building blocks for long-term growth in each interaction. It's worth repeating that the joy is in the journey. Don't get caught up in where you're going. Immerse yourself in where you're at and be the best you can be right now. Check out Kaeman Mitchell on Twitter at KMitch29. That's KMITCH 29. Please share this podcast and visit us at primeu.org to find more valuable tools to help you reach your prime. Our next podcast is coming up, and if you subscribe to our newsletter on primeu.org, you'll get it in your inbox right when it comes out. Send me an email at jared@primeu.org. That's JARROD@primeu.org. Remember, it's not enough to know. We must apply. Take the lessons you're learning and start using them now. Thanks for listening. See you next time.